Watkins. I will be chairing the Advisory Redistricting Commission meeting. To my left is Sherry O'Neill, one of the commission members. To my right is Peter Radden, another commissioning member who's here in person. We'll now take roll call. Stephanie, want to take roll?
Thank you. Commissioner O'Neill,
Here.
Reyes, Mosier,
Here.
Radden,
Present.
Watkins.
Here.
Thank you. Reyes is excused and you have a quorum.
Thank you, Stephanie. For the record, this is Elisa Benson. I'm with CAO staff, and I will be the MC for the Advisory Redistricting Commission's first public workshop on our 2021 redistricting process. We have already done introductions of our commissioners. We'll do some quick introductions of staff, and then I'll run through the agenda real quickly, just so everyone knows what we'll be trying to accomplish tonight. So as I mentioned, I'm Elisa Benson. I'm going to pass it over to Ruby to introduce herself.
Hi, good evening. I'm Ruby Marquez. I'm the Chief Assistant County Counsel, and I'm the Legal Advisor to the Redistricting Commission.
Susan, you're next.
I'm Susan Perlman in the County Administrative Office. I'm helping with the project.
Matt, how about you?
Yeah, hello, I'm Matt Price. I'm the GIS manager for the county.
And Miss Rita Sanchez, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Rita Sanchez with County Administrative Office. I'm an analyst and I'm helping with the redistricting process.
Thank you, staff, and thank you, commissioners, for being here tonight. Very quickly, I just want to welcome everyone here, and hopefully we have some public members who are interested in learning about this process. This is our first public workshop to hear from community about their thoughts regarding county supervisorial district boundaries and what changes we might need to be consider in light of changes in population and just changes in our community. This is really going to be a listening session, assuming we have some folks to share their perspectives. But before we get into that part of the meeting, we do want to provide what we call our redistricting basics. So everyone understands the process, as there's been some changes since it was first done the last time in 2011. We'll talk a little bit about the technology, and then we'll really get to the heart of the meeting for the community, which is talking about communities of interest and inviting folks to learn about that topic and share what they think about their communities of interest and how that should be reflected in boundaries as we move forward. We'll also have the opportunity for public comment that will be we would like that to focus on the content of our meeting today, which is on communities of interest and the redistricting process, but that is a place where any comment from the public around the commission's work is welcome. And then we'll have some brief announcement as needed, and we'll adjourn for the evening. With that, I want to invite Rita to start us off with our first presentation. We are doing this, as the commission members know, in a hybrid format. So we are set up here in the chambers at 701 Ocean for public participation, but we've also set this up as a Zoom call so folks can participate virtually as well. We really want to maximize that opportunity for community input on this process. So Rita, take it away. Why don't you tell us about this, what redistricting is now in 2021?
Hi, everyone. Let me just make sure you can hear me and see me.
Yep, we can.
Okay, perfect. All righty. So let me just get a little bit settled. And Stephanie Cabrera will be sharing my PowerPoint.
Rita, one thing I want to say, in here, we're seeing on the screen the message that the meeting's being recorded, and that little window has not closed. So it's interfering with that's something Stephanie can fix, or we need to do that from a different computer.
If someone can just accept the recording notification, just say yes.
Who is on I do not have a keyboard.
It is at the clerk desk. So.
All right, let's see. Susan, can you Can you do that? Do you have a mouse and you can just click yes?
I don't have to do anything.
All right, let me come over there and help. This is exactly why
Okay.
we're doing this tonight.
Oh, there's a mouse over here.
Got it.
Simultaneously, got it. Hooray, thank you.
Okay, Rita, we're ready for you.
Okay, perfect. So I want to thank everyone again for participating, whoever's joining us in person or online, joining us at our first Santa Cruz County Redistricting Public Workshop. Again, my name is Rita Sanchez. I'm an analyst with the County Administrative Office, and I'm part of the redistricting team. In this presentation, I'll be going over the basics of redistricting, the role of the Advisory Redistricting Commission in the redistricting process, and I'll mention the laws governing redistricting. After that, a little bit of background information. I'll be talking a little bit about communities of interest, and I'll give you a bit of a timeline on the rest of the redistricting process. I'm going to ask if there's anyone with questions on this presentation to please save them till the end of the presentation, and then we'll be sure to answer your questions. Next slide. So the purpose of these workshops, I'm sure it was mentioned, is to inform the public of our current redistricting efforts, but also gain public input. We have 3 additional public workshops scheduled, which will be a bit more region focused, but you are welcome to attend any of these public workshops. The information is on this slide, but it can also be found on our website. Next slide. So what is redistricting and why it matters? Redistricting usually happens every 10 years after the release of the decennial census. The census provides us a lot of information on who our community is and how it has changed in the past 10 years. And as communities change, existing districts need to be adjusted so that each district is substantially equal in population, and to ensure that each board member represents about the same number of constituents. Your participation in redistricting efforts is very important and matters because it helps determine which neighborhoods and communities are grouped together into a district for purposes of electing a board member. It also ensures that more communities have a better opportunity to elect candidates of their choice and voice their specific needs and interests. Next slide. So the County of Santa Cruz is made up of 5 supervisorial districts, each with an elected representative, making up our Board of Supervisors. And on February 23rd of this year, the Board of Supervisors established an Advisory Redistricting Commission to guide redistricting efforts. And soon after that, appointed a community member of each district to serve on the commission. The role of the commission is to conduct public outreach through informational sessions and workshops like today's, and to encourage public participation. They serve as the eyes and ears of the supervisors to hear public input from the community to help identify and define neighborhoods and communities of interests in Santa Cruz County. And ultimately, they recommend changes in district boundaries to be considered by the board in its approval of updated supervisorial boundaries. So by participating today, you all are providing commissioners with the input necessary for them to consider when they begin drafting the recommended changes. Next slide. Along with the input, your input, commissioners will also take into consideration certain state and federal legislature as they move forward. Under Assembly Bill 849 and Election Code 21500, supervisorial districts need to be drawn using the following criteria in this order. So the first criteria is supervisorial districts must be of nearly equal population. So this means some deviation is acceptable. Criteria number 2, supervisorial districts must comply with the Voting Rights Act to ensure that minorities have a fair opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. The third criteria, to the extent practicable, supervisorial lines must be drawn contiguously, which means they share a common border. Next, supervisorial districts must minimize the division of cities, neighborhoods, or communities of interest to the extent possible. And we'll come back to this topic in the next slide. Criteria number 5, districts must minimize division of cities or census designated places. Next, boundaries must be easily identifiable and understandable. And this can be achieved by utilizing natural and artificial barriers, streets, or county boundary lines. Districts must be geographically compact to the extent possible. And finally, to the extent possible, districts must not favor or discriminate any political parties. So this is a pretty long list of criteria that makes up kind of the marching orders of the commission as they go about their work. Next slide. Okay, so now that I've given you just a bit of background information, I want to move on to kind of why we're here today, which is communities of interest and getting your input. So as you saw, communities of interest is fairly high up in the order of priority when drawing district lines. Communities of interest are defined as a concentrated population which shares common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. So we do have a definition for communities of interest. Some examples that we can provide include areas in which people share similar living standards. A community of interest can have similar cultures, use the same transportation facilities, have similar work opportunities, or have access to the same media. It can also be a group of people with a common cause or path. So this does leave quite a bit of room for defining the interest piece, and it's up to those who live or work within the community to identify and establish the interest that unites it. And this is where you all come in. So a little later in the agenda, you'll have the opportunity to tell us about your community of interest, and which is mainly why we're here. So next slide. Okay, so as you start thinking about your community of interest, we have listed a few things to consider. You can think about your street or your neighborhood. What shared interests do you have? What brings you together? Are there nearby areas you want to be with in a district? It could be a park, a community resource center. Has your community come together in the past to advocate for important services like better schools, roads, health centers in your neighborhood, things like that? So just a few things to think about. You will have an opportunity to think about it a little bit more and perhaps map your community of interest in a little bit. And a staff member from our office will also be going into communities of interest and how to use our online tool for that. Next slide. Okay, so now timeline and phases. The timeline that you see here is broken up by phases, and we began with our access and outreach phase, which began around July. And that began with the launch of our website. And on our website was an online community of interest tool where folks can describe their community of interest, reasons why they should stay together within the same district, and they can map it out. And that's available through our website, but we also have forms here today if anybody is interested. We've also began our public outreach efforts through social media. Hopefully you've seen some of our public outreach efforts in Facebook and Nextdoor and things like that. We've also reached out to community organizations, and we're continuing those outreach efforts. We want to spread the word far and wide. August 20th, we did have preliminary data. This is unapportioned data, and I will go into the data in the next slide and a little bit more of kind of what that means. But for now, I want to continue talking about our current phase and our next phase. So currently we're in the involvement and engagement phase, which is public education workshops, community of interest workshops. That's what we're doing now, and this will take us through the month of September. That's what we're going to be focusing on. With the September 20th release of official data, I'll go into that a little bit more in the next slide. But with that release of official data, then we start our line drawing and mapping work. And by we, I mean the Art Commission, right? They will begin drafting plans and maps, and those plans and maps will be recommended to the board to consider as for final adoption. We have public hearings scheduled for the Board of Supervisors to consider draft plans and maps that will be put together by the Art Commission. And the first public hearing being October 26th. We have another public hearing scheduled November 9th, November 16th, hopefully for final map adoption. And we do have a deadline of December 15th for the final map adoption. So we are in a little bit of a time crunch, but we are doing our due diligence and getting the word out and engaging you all to make sure that this all gets done by that December 15th deadline. Next slide. Okay, so now the preliminary 2020 census data. This year, as you know, the result of this count was delayed due to the difficulty of counting during the COVID-19 pandemic. But the deadline to adopt final maps didn't change. We're still required to adopt final maps by December 15th. So to help meet upcoming deadlines, the Census Bureau released preliminary redistricting data, which is what you see here. This table is broken up by district with the population target for each district at 54,172.2. And this number was obtained just by taking the total census population of 270,861 and just dividing that by 5. We compare our population data to our census population, and we're able to see how much we're over and under in each district. This preliminary data is helpful in planning efforts, but it's important to remember that it's not the final data. So the second and final data release is expected on or about September 20th. And the difference with this data is this data will conform to changes made to the election code in 2019, which specify that incarcerated persons population be apportioned to the census block of their last known home address, instead of where they were incarcerated when the census was taken. So it will take all those folks that were incarcerated when the census was taken and then place them back into the census blocks of their last home address. So this will change our data a little bit. So it's important to note that that will be our final data. Next slide. Okay, so that's it for me. The quick overview on the process, a quick overview of the legislature and what the commission is up against as far as deadlines. But the main focus is we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're getting involved. We do hope that you get involved in other redistricting efforts as well that are going on throughout the state and within our county. And that's all for me. If anybody has any questions, then I'd feel free to answer them.
Members of the commission, do you have any questions for Rita about the presentation?
That was very nice. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rita. I think we're going to go along over to Matt for his presentation. I just want to let everyone know we do have some community members who have joined the Zoom call, and they're listening at this point, and that we will be inviting them to participate virtually in one of our exercises. And then if they're comfortable to share some of their thinking about redistricting in community and their community, that public comment item on the agenda. But just as this is a new format for all of us, new way to do engagement, we'll take a little bit of time along the way to check in with the process.
I have one question. Will that PowerPoint be on the website?
Yes, sir. That PowerPoint will be on the website. All right, Matt, did you have a point of, a question or point of order, Stephanie, that you wanted to share?
Yes, just for those that are joining in online via Zoom, when it's time for public comment, if you can please use the raise hand feature and we can call you with that. And for this item, there have been no members of the public wishing to speak.
Thank you. All right, Matt.
Great, thank you. Is it okay if I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. Are you able to see it?
Not, yes, well, we are seeing it not in presentation mode.
Right, so now are you able to see it?
Now we are seeing it in presentation mode.
Wonderful. I want to thank you, Rita, for that presentation. And I wanted to thank everybody else for coming out, taking time out of their schedules to support the Redistricting Commission and the county and the Redistricting 2021 process. My name is Matt Price, and I support the mapping program here at the county. And I'm going to be going over some of the mapping resources that the county is going to be making available, both to the public and to the Redistricting Commission. So what I'm going to be covering this evening briefly will be, I'll talk a little bit about the community of interest form and the way you can submit a map along with the form. I'll talk a little bit about the census data that's going to be made available for redistricting. And then I'll also talk a little bit about the ESRI redistricting software that the county is going to make available. And at the end, I will provide some links to some resources on the materials that we covered in this presentation. So the community of interest form is available on the county's website. When you go to the redistricting website, you'll see an area where you can click on community of interest and it'll bring up this form. And the form basically, it allows you to enter your name, your address, your phone number, and your email. And then we ask you to kind of identify some information about your community of interest. So we kind of ask you to provide a name for the community of interest. We ask you to tell us about your community, you know, what brings you together, what's important to you and your community. Then we kind of ask you to describe a little bit about the place and, you know, are there nearby areas that you don't want to be associated with or you do want to be associated with? And then we ask you maybe to provide a little bit more about your story. Is there anything else that you want to share about your community of interest? And then at the bottom of the form, there is the ability to actually draw in or map your community of interest. And that form looks like this. And if I can kind of draw your attention to the upper left area, there are tools to zoom in or zoom out on the map. You can click on the map and kind of move it, pan around. It's very similar to like a Google Maps type of an interface. You can also just do a search for an address or a place to zoom in a little closer on the map. The home button will reset the map to the initial extent. And then the little square box around underneath the home button, if you click on that, that'll kind of pop the map out of the form and give you a little bit more area to work with to kind of to draw on the map. Then on the upper right-hand side, you'll notice there's a base map selector, so you can change the base map. And then there is a start drawing tool. And then once you click on the start drawing tool and then click on the map, a dot will appear. And then as you move your mouse, you can click and start adding vertices and draw a shape. And as you are drawing the shape, you'll notice that a little toolbar pops up underneath. And it allows you, if you click a point and you don't want that point added to your shape or your area, you can undo it, you can redo it, you can reset the whole drawing, you can cancel it. And then when you're happy with how you've drawn your shape, you can either click finish or double click on the map and that will finish the drawing. Then once you're at that phase, if you're not totally happy with how you've identified the community of interest, how you've drawn it, there is a draw tool that's available and that'll become available after you actually draw a shape. And if you click on that, that'll kind of highlight the vertices on the shape that you've drawn. And those are basically the dots, the points where you clicked with your mouse. And you can click on any one of those and move them around and adjust it. And then once you're happy, you can hit the finish button or click the pencil tool again, and that'll make the adjustments that you've applied. And then that data that you submit with the form, it gets fed into our community of interest map. And so all the surveys are kind of fed into this application. We don't share the information you provided, like your name and your phone number and your email. We don't provide that in this app, but we do share the community name that you provided, the portion of the tell us about your community, tell us about your place, tell us about your story. That all gets fed into one app so everybody can kind of see what other people have submitted. And it automatically gets fed in. I do review it for appropriate language, and then I just kind of feed it right on through to this application. There are other ways that you can submit your community of interest. You can email the redistricting email. Tonight, you're going to have an opportunity as well. If you're there in person, you could mark up or fill out a form, and we'll take those forms. So however you want to get us that information, we'll feed it into this app. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the census data for redistricting. And so the census data is basically, it's a hierarchical system. It's kind of a containment system. So the nation is broken into states, which are then broken into counties, and then to census tracts, and then to block groups. And then finally, census blocks are kind of the basic building block of a lot of the other census geographic entities. So on the right side of the map, you'll see what the census blocks kind of look like in the Capitola area. And those are the white lines that are drawn on the map. So each one of those is a census block. The number on the top is the unique identifier for the census block. And then the number underneath is the total population that was counted within that area, within that census block. The data that we'll be working with in conducting the redistricting, it's referred to as the Public Law 94-171, and it's the summary files. And so in addition to just total population, we have the population broken out by race. We have it broken out by Hispanic or Latino, or not Hispanic or Latino by race. We have race for 18 years and over. We have Hispanic or Latino and not Hispanic or Latino by race for 18 years or over. So basically kind of the voting age population. Then we also have information on group quarters populations and housing occupancy status. And some of the other sources of data that we use when we're considering the redistricting process are these communities of interest. And so that's why we're hoping that we can get your input tonight to help define these. Other areas that we look at, as Rita described, are things like cities, census designated places. We can look at other jurisdictional boundaries such as fire, water districts, just to name a few. We can also look at voter registration and statement of vote, and that data is tied back to the census blocks, citizen voting age population, and that's also kind of tied back to the census blocks as well. So there's other sources of information that we can look at as we go about this process. The data was released by the Statewide Database, and the Statewide Database is kind of an entity. They are the official data steward for the census data for the state of California. And on August 18th, they released the preliminary data, and Rita showed that information to you in her slides. On September 20th, we're anticipating that they will release California's official redistricting database. And as she described, this will include the adjusted inmate reallocated PL 94-171 redistricting data. And so that's where they go through and they take the California prison population and they reassign those people back to their last known address. And so we're expecting a slight increase in the total population for the county. And we're waiting, obviously, for September 20th to see how that works out. The statewide database will also be providing other data sets, so the voter registration and the statement of vote, and the citizen voting age population. And they have a mathematical process that they use to tie that back to those census blocks. The county is also going to be making available the ESRI redistricting software solution. And this is a web-based software, and that will enable the commission and the members of the public to create and share regulation compliant redistricting plans. And so the ESRI redistricting software supports plan creation, reporting, and then also thematic mapping. And so in terms of creating plans, if people are interested in developing plans, the software provides kind of a step-by-step workflow. It allows you to create plans, edit plans, view plans, share plans. You can start from scratch and just make your own plan. You can take someone else's plan and adjust it. You can merge two plans together. So it's a pretty powerful software tool. It's pretty easy to use. It's kind of a map-centric software. It will kind of usher you through the process of developing these plans. It also has a reporting component to it. So it allows you to run reports. So after you develop your plan, you can run reports. They have some that are kind of pre-built, and then you can also customize reports. And then it allows you to get information on various demographic indicators that you might be interested in getting a better understanding of your plan. And then it also allows you to create thematic maps. And so it allows you to print and share the maps. It helps get a better understanding, communicate the plans that you've developed, and also maybe helps in comparing the different alternatives that you've come up with and proposed. So this is what the software kind of looks like. Basically, what you're doing is you're assigning the census block to a district. And as you're doing that in real time, you'll see the totals update. And so it provides like the total Hispanic population, and then the total Hispanic population by percent, total non-Hispanic population, total non-Hispanic population by percent. So as you're making your adjustments in real time, you can kind of see how the numbers for various demographic elements are changing. And finally, I just wanted to provide a list of links. And so there's a link to the community of interest page. You can fill out the survey and submit the form. If you're interested in learning more about the census data and the efforts of the statewide database, there's a link to the statewide database. Then I have a couple of links, one to the ESRI redistricting software solution overview. It gives you a little bit of information about the software tool. And the great thing about the ESRI software tool is that there's a lot of videos that have been prepared on YouTube they're very short, that take you through and kind of guide you on how to do a certain activity in working with the software. So with that kind of ends what I was going to cover, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Stephanie, do we have any questions from the public or comments from the public on Matt's presentation?
Elisa,
They're
there's a question in chat that I attempted to answer, but I don't think I did. So I thought Matt would actually be the best person. So if you get a chance to go into chat, Matt, there's a member of the public who had a question about one of the mapping tools.
Why don't we just read it out loud and we can see if Matt can answer it.
It was a technical question about a particular mapping tool and whether it was live.
Okay.
So I think Matt might be best able to.
Sure, I'm happy to take that question. Yeah, so right now what we have is the community of interest form and the survey. The ESRI redistricting software solution is not currently available. The final data isn't going to be released until September 20th. And we're working with ESRI right now to get that software set up and configured. So it's still a little ways out, a week or two out before we'll have that available.
So thanks, Matt. So right now, really, probably where people should start is just by, as you said, identifying community. Going to be a little bit later in our process in the next set of workshops, we'll be able to start focusing more on actual mapping questions, correct?
That's correct.
Great, thank you. Stephanie, do we have any other questions from the public or comments on this item?
Currently, there are none, but just a reminder to use the raise hand feature if you would like to make a comment.
And I guess, let's see if we have anyone who is that. I guess I want to ask if there's any comments or questions from our commissioners.
No.
Thank you. So with that, I think our next item is really to start our communities of interest exercise. And Susan Porman, our but this is her fourth redistricting process. Is here to talk a little bit about the communities of interest exercises. We don't have members of the public here present to get their hands dirty and start drawing on maps here, but I'm going to pass it over to Susan to talk a little bit about this, and we can talk about how folks who are doing this from home maybe should get started.
Thank you, Lise. You know, we've heard a lot about communities of interest tonight. We've heard what the California Constitution, how it defines it as a community interest, as a population which shares common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. But what does that really mean? How about some examples? Examples of shared interest are those common to an urban area, a rural area, an industrial area, or an agricultural area. They are common to areas in which people share similar living standards, use the same transportation facilities, have similar work opportunities, or have access to the same methods of communication relevant to the election process. Cultural communities are also communities of interest. The only thing they don't include, communities of interest do not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. So for your purposes, consider them to be self-defined. Story. And personal stories are the most powerful way you can communicate. Does your neighborhood share certain celebrations or traditions? Are there important places where your community gathers? What is the history of how your community came together? So you can talk to us in several different ways. You can talk to us tonight live over Zoom. You can go to our website, which is the County of Santa Cruz, and we have the Redistricting 2020 website. And if you go to the Outreach tab, there's a form that you can fill out online, and there's a mapping tool if you choose to map it. If you don't choose to map your community of interest, that's not a problem. Our GIS team will take care of that. So when you're writing about your story, streets and boundaries are important pieces of information. So you want to describe what connects the people and why it's important that they be kept together. If possible, provide statistics to support your description. The US Census Bureau has a lot of data about your area available online, and specific data used in redistricting will be available in the redistricting mapping tool, which will become available when the statewide databases provides the final data. In his presentation, our GIS Matt Price showed the form that's available to guide your thinking and the easy to use tool. So maybe when this workshop is over, I'll encourage you to go there and use it. For those of you participating in Zoom and not working on your map right now, I encourage you to just raise your hand and tell us what communities are important to you, why it's important to keep it together. And just to reiterate, the commission and the Board of Supervisors really want very much to hear your stories this evening. So please feel free to raise your hand and tell us a little bit about your community of interest. And remember, this isn't the last time you'll have a chance to do that. There are 3 more workshops coming up that are regionally based, but open to all. There's one for your neighbors in Mid-County, North County, and South County. And the dates and locations are on the website under meetings and public workshops. So that's the end of my participation. And I'd really like you to raise your hand and tell us about your community.
Well, thank you, Susan. I think we're now actually to what we would say is the public comment part of our meeting officially. And this is, as Susan walked through, we are really, really looking forward to hearing from community members about how they identify their communities of interest, and how that intersects with the questions around boundary changes that we're looking through this process. This is also an opportunity to come on anything else that's not on the agenda around our advisory redistricting commission. With that, I'm going to ask Stephanie if we do have any hands raised and invite them to speak to the commission and to staff about this process.
And just as a point of order, we do have a 3-minute time limit. The chair may opt to extend or shorten the time. We currently have 2 members of the public wishing to speak during this time. I'll call you by your name or the last 4 digits of your phone number and allow you to unmute yourself. Henry Cleveland, your microphone is available.
Hi, Henry Cleveland, Aptos, Pines Mobile Home Park, Namaste.
Hi, Henry.
Hi there. Okay, camera's off. I wish every state had the same process, so congratulations to all of you. And I was pleased to see that there's already a draft map, a preliminary map online. I'm interested in the allocation of the Pinto Lake Mobile Estates Mobile Home Park at the north end of Green Valley Road. It's across the street from the county sheriff's office, just up the street from the county's Pinto Lake Parks. So do you know where that mobile home park is? Will it stay in District 2 or move to District 4 preliminarily? And otherwise, to further go on, I'd like it to stay in District 2. That mobile home park is in the county unincorporated district. So it falls under the county's mobile home space rent stabilization ordinance. County has a good way of maintaining mobile home, that mobile home residency ordinance. The city of Watsonville does a great job too with theirs. However, all of the mobile home parks that are currently within District 4 are within the city of Watsonville. So it makes it very efficient for that mobile home commissioner, for the county's mobile home commission to represent his or her parks. If that commissioner had to understand both forms of mobile home residency law, it'd be a little bit complicated. That's all I have to say. Thank you. I succeed my remaining 80 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Cleveland.
Rebecca Garcia, your microphone is available.
Thank you very much. I'm on the Watsonville City Council, and I have been involved with districting and redistricting since 1989. So I know how successful we've been here in Watsonville. My question is, what will be the relationship between your attorney and your demographer?
Can you, thank you, Councilmember Garcia, for that question. Can you explain a little bit more the issue you're asking about? Our demographer, we do not have a consulting demographer. Matt is our GIS manager who is doing our mapping and has many go-rounds of redistricting data. So just a little, if you could give us a little bit more information about what's the question you'd like us to explore.
Let me clarify myself then. I should ask you then, what is going to be the relationship between your attorney and their GIS? Because the GIS can create the maps, but my experience is that the attorney then tells the demographer or the GIS if they're within the law of the Voting Rights Act.
I think we can, thank you for that clarification. What I can say about the creation of the maps, really for us, our commissioners here will be based on input from our community, as well as alignment with the criteria under federal and state law, give guidance to Matt to draw up different configurations reflecting that input. One of the processes that the commission will have to go through is assuring that any proposed changes do comply with the Voting Rights Act. As Rita walked through in her presentation, that is one of our, I can't remember if it's number 2 or number 3 in the ranked order of criteria for evaluating the soundness of the proposal. So any of the maps that are recommended by the commission will have a legal review around those ranked criteria.
And that's exactly what I wanted to hear, is that the attorney, I guess that's who I'm speaking to, will be assuring of the Voting Rights Act that those districts are within those rules and regulations. So thank you.
Thank you for your question. Stephanie, any other questions or comments?
There are no other members of the public wishing to speak to this item.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, Stephanie, did you have another point?
It looks like Councilmember Garcia has raised their hand again.
Okay. Councilmember Garcia.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I had lowered it.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. So I think that probably brings our public comment section to a close. Now our next item on our agenda is announcements. And I guess I want to turn this over to the chair and to the commissioners to see if there's anything they want to share at this point.
No, I appreciate the public comment and look forward to working with the community to make this a successful undertaking.
Thank you, Chair.
Peter?
Okay, well, with that, we have actually come to the close of our scheduled item or our agenda items. We do have 3 more workshops, and this was our first go at this. I think we've learned from tonight what we want to be focusing on, and really recognizing that the hybrid remote approach, we really will anticipate that probably a lot of our community participation will be virtual, and how do we tailor our subsequent workshops to really provide the best opportunity for everyone to be a part of that conversation. With that, I want to just ask Stephanie or Rita or any of our staff members if there's any other announcements that we want to share with both our commissioners and with the public.
There are no clerk announcements.
And I'm
here. I just want to remind folks to keep checking back on our website. We do update that continuously and put up any upcoming new information will go up there. And if you do want to be part of our redistribution, our redistricting distribution list, there is a way to sign up for that on our website, and I will be sending anything that comes up around redistricting your way if you're part of that list.
Thank you, Rita. Susan, anything else? Okay.
Well, hearing none, I'll recommend adjournment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all for participating.
All right, if this meeting is adjourned.
And thank you. I'll be ending the recording now.